I just read on your website who you performed with. It's unbelievable. Can you tell me how you got into this business?
I started playing piano when I was 7 years old. But I tell people that I didn't really start to enjoy it till I was 12 or 13, but I didn't have the courage to quit because I know my mom would get mad at me. And but it was when I discovered, chord symbols written in music that it opened doors for me. It's like, oh, so if I figure out what a C minor seventh is, there's a million different ways that I could play it. And then I don't have to be burdened with having to read all those annoying dots that are on the page either. So it's been a lifelong journey of playing essentially my own notes, figuring out what makes me sound like I know what I'm doing and avoiding stuff that I think doesn't feel good in my hands. So I've been kind of obsessed with that. But to answer your question, I have absolutely no other skills. So becoming a professional musician was just sort of a logical step. I ended up going to a music school in a jazz department and then just sort of networking my way into being paid money to do music.
I am just always blown away when I hear you touch the keys. Of course, you were not born like that, okay? So you had to eventually work on it.
Yeah, you raise an excellent point. If you look at it as kind of, I don't want to overstate it, but it is kind of a calling because very few of us become wealthy doing this. It is kind of an obsession, and you have to spend as much time as you possibly can improving your craft so that when it comes time to perform, it looks almost effortless, but it doesn't really indicate how much work you have put into it.
And you had a very famous teacher, Jackie Bayard, right?
Jackie Bayard, yes. So when I was 18 years old, just getting into listening to jazz, a friend of my dad's gave me 3 albums. And one of them was by the great alto sax player named Phil Woods. And I'd never heard of him, and I'd never heard of anybody in the band. And the piano player I thought was just astounding. And it was this guy named Jackie Bayard. And then I was reading the liner notes, and it said, presently Jackie Bayard teaches piano in the jazz department at New England Conservatory in Boston. And my head just sort of went, you can take lessons with somebody like that? So,
but wait, you lived in Chicago though, right?
I was going to, I'm from Chicago. At that point, I was going to not a music school, just a regular liberal arts school up in Minnesota. And that's when I decided, you know what? I think I don't really want to be around regular people anymore. I just want to do the deep dive into becoming a better musician. So that's how I ended up in Boston and stayed on the East Coast for 15 years, something like that. And the first part of which was in Boston and studying with Jackie.
I told you about this memory I have when we did the recording session of you playing this piano at Pops for Champagne. And, I went there almost every night and saw other guys play it. And at the time, before I saw you play it, I never touched the instrument, so I can't say what kind of quality it was. But one thing was apparent. When you touched it, it sounded like a different instrument. You made this piano sound like a concert grand piano in a concert hall. And then you told me that sound is something really important to you. And your teacher also was very much into that, right? But how can you explain to us what sound means anyway?
Sure.
You know?
Well, first of all, thank you for the wonderful compliment. It's kind of baked into my professional existence in that I need to make my peace with whatever instrument is in the venue and decide quickly what this instrument is capable of doing and what I shouldn't bother trying to do. Some instruments, if they're so amazingly beautiful, it seems like they almost play themselves, and it's very easy. And other ones, it's like pulling teeth a little bit. It's like I've got to discover, and if it's not really well tuned, that means I can't play as many thick textures, because the more notes, the more everybody's going to notice that it's out of tune. But this came from Jackie Byard when I was playing for him one day, and he said, "That was good. There's one thing that I really need you to think about." And he made me guess, and I just guessed one thing after another. It's like, oh, my chords, no, everything that I guessed was incorrect. And finally, he said, "It's your sound, man. You got to be aware of producing a good sound," which is nothing that had ever been said to me. I thought that kind of was more of a priority with, say, string instruments, your tone quality, or if you're blowing air through an instrument, you're very connected to your sound. But you and I, we know that you sit at a piano, you go, bam, you make
it's a hammer, man. It's a hammer hanging a string.
And once you hit it, there's nothing you can do about it. But it's, how you approach the keys and constantly thinking about what your dynamics are, just sort of a constant undulation of loud and soft as opposed to just sort of a flat line. So, as I've written, the little policeman in my head is always on duty saying, if I'm playing something that's overly ambitious and I'm not quite executing it, it doesn't sound good. And the policeman says, you know what, simplify it until everything sounds pleasing.
You're basically saying you need to listen intensely to yourself and evaluate every tone that you produce and then adjust. Is that what you're saying?
Every gesture, there's an assessment. It's these micro adjustments. It's like, that one note, that sounded kind of clunky. So I'm gonna back off the accelerator, the gas pedal by just that much, and we'll see if we can get things the way they should be.
So did you learn this just from listening back to the instrument, or did you record yourself in order to get to that point?
You know what? A lot of people record themselves and say how beneficial it is. And I've never really gotten it together to do that. But I think I started, first just keeping it in mind every time I sat at the piano, just to make sure that it sounds good and not pounding. We notice in conversation that if you bring your level down, you'll notice that people will maybe pay a little bit more attention, right? So it's the same thing in music. We can't really compete with drummers and instruments that are playing through amplifiers. I'm sure you've gotten steamrolled many times, and
bloody fingers, man.
And your arms hurt. And,
bloody fingers.
Yeah, and you're so angry. You go, "I will be heard." That never works, and you can just end up hurting yourself. So better just everybody in a group's got to be listening to each other, otherwise the music fails. So when it's time for a piano solo, I'll start about here, and I'll wait for the bass player and the drums to meet me at my level, and then we'll start our little journey.
That's beautiful. Now I'm still not satisfied though with the sound Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't finish my thought,
Yeah.
actually. So instead of recording myself and being analytical that way, I like to think that, sometimes, you're up in your room just listening to records for hours and hours and say, well, what are you doing up there? Well, you're wasting your time. To me, this is like valuable research in what we do. And so I started just listening to all the piano players, even if it wasn't their record. Most of the times they're just a sideman. These are all really good piano players. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be on a record, right? But you start thinking, who has a beautiful sound? And you try to imprint that on your brain and emulate it. The first one that comes to mind is, if we ask people to name their top 15 favorite piano players, this guy might not show up on too many lists, but I think Hank Jones always got an exquisite sound out of the piano. I don't try to play like him, but I thought, something that we'll probably talk about in a minute, but I thought he was a brilliant accompanist. Mm-hmm. But his solos were always well thought and swinging, but he never produced an unpleasant sound. Obviously, Bill Evans got a gorgeous sound out of the piano. He was very classically trained and had kind of physically knew how to execute that, but it was also a sound in his head that he was trying to put forth. So I think if you really listen with a capital L, intensely to music and look for certain things, then you have that information.
That's beautiful. It's a good tip, yeah. And everybody has different preferences, probably, what they consider a good sound.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are really famous piano players. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but who I say, yeah, it swings. I like the vocabulary. I don't think it's a gorgeous sound.
Well, I mean, one of the people I always thought has an amazing sound. It's in my opinion, very underrated old guy, Teddy Wilson.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
He had an absolute elegant. It was like pearls, Every note he played was just I can't describe it. It's just.
Yeah. I would put him in that category too. I mean, you do need to sink into the bottom of the keys in order to make things groove and swing. But that doesn't mean you have to have like hammers for fists. Teddy Wilson had an elegant touch, and he could play fast and he could swing, but it always sounded gorgeous.
Always beautiful. Yeah, and he played uprights. He was one of those guys like you. He could probably play anything, The
opposite of that. And my respect for Thelonious Monk is very profound. His vocabulary and his touch, no matter how good the piano was, it almost sounded like it was out of tune, even if it was completely in tune. It's like, wow, how do you do that?
For a long time, I stayed away from him because I thought he can't play. So, I was young, I just couldn't understand his time. That was strange to me. It just was weird.
All the like cracked, the double notes, and it's like,
and then the harshness in how he banged the notes, and that was all about his sound. That was his sound.
Yeah, you got to sound like yourself,
And he did that. Yeah. Now, you know what you want. So how do I go about this if I want to practice this? You said awareness is important and listening to other guys that you like and then try to copy this probably, right? In a way. But is there a way you could practice this in your practice room?
Well, my practice room is my living room in my house. And in the last few years, I've gotten into the habit of playing for a little while before I go to sleep. So that could be really late at night. And if my windows are open, I'm guessing my neighbors don't want to hear me play in the middle of the night. So I try to play as softly as possible.
Oh.
And that doesn't mean playing super slow. They're not the same thing. So it's one of the ways I approach a piano that I'm going to play for the first time. It's like, how softly can I play? Because if the piano's not that good, you'll get it down to mezzo piano and then it disappears, right? But a really good piano, you can play it quadruple pianissimo and you still feel like there's no danger of the notes not coming out. So I think I equate playing softly with getting a nice sound. That doesn't mean that you can't get a nice sound when you're playing louder, but I think that's a good way to, for me anyway, that's a good way to lock it in as a priority. It's like, I'm going to play something, it has some urgency to it, but at a very low volume.
You know, you can focus really on things you wouldn't focus on when you're really physically engaged too much. So I think that's a great idea. I love to do that too.
And I say that to young drummers too. It's like, I know this is a really hard thing that I'm asking. It's very difficult to play with urgency at a low volume, but try to do it. Not only will I be grateful because the levels will be more equitable, but when you hear, say like Ed Thigpen playing with Oscar Peterson, or just somebody in a great drummer in a piano trio, the sound of a drummer swinging his butt off at pianissimo is, I think, thrilling. And then at some point it's going to go somewhere, but meanwhile the tension is building at this low volume. If you think of a dynamic range, you're going to have just a broader palette to draw from. So, I think of Ahmad Jamal. When I've seen him play, it's like, wow, I've never heard anybody play that soft. And then 2 minutes later, wow, I don't think I've ever heard anybody play that loud. And it was, he's got a lot of options that way.
Yes, and that difference makes you want to listen to someone. Someone always plays here.
Yeah. It's monotonous, no matter how brilliant the content is. If it doesn't have that, conversational flow to it, and just in terms of rhythm, but what we're talking about is dynamics, then you feel like you're justified in extending what you have to say.
Now, there's another thing that you are unbelievable in, and that's, call it feel, call it timing. I don't know what you want to call it. You can play funk music, you swing incredibly, you can play ballads, all of this stuff, but the time where you place the notes, it is so beautiful. It is driving the band where it needs to be driven, and when it keeps them in place when it has to be. So how did you come to that point?
Well, the time feel is such an elusive thing to teach someone, or to even consciously develop on your own. And a couple things come to mind. One, again, is to listen to the masters and those who you think are doing it right. Try to do it with the same feel. I just would listen with an intensity and try to, it's like eating a meal. I would try to absorb and digest everything that I thought was nutritious, and it would come out in my playing. But in terms of executing the way things feel in real time, I think the simplest way that I can put it is just that you have to make every beat or every subdivision, no matter how you're thinking of a particular piece of music, whether swung or even eighths, you have to have a very specific idea of where your relationship is to the beat. Practicing along with a metronome is a really good way, I think, to become confident with where you're placing the beat. I like to aim for the middle so that I'm playing like right with the click, like simultaneously. But that doesn't mean that every once in a while you can't play a little bit before the click or a little bit after the click, as long as you're not dragging or rushing. I mean, that when different people have different ideas of where they're placing the beat, that tension kind of creates groove in a way. That kind of push and pull between different people. But I make sure that, much like having it sound good, I make sure that where I place each gesture, if I'm on the and of two, it's exactly between beat one and beat two. It's not in this weird place. There's a lot of different places that you could put something between those clicks, but I try to have a very specific idea where that is. And I'm trying to absorb where everybody else's idea of beat placement is and see where mine fits in. So yeah, I tell my students that you need to listen to what's going on with the other players more than you're listening to yourself, because that's how, playing in a group it's got to be a conversation where you're really focused in on what the other people are doing, assuming you're secure enough with what you're doing that you can let go of that and be inspired by everybody else.
Once I had an amazing bass player playing with us with some jobbing gig, and I just felt he kicked me in the butt every so often. He just woke me up.
Every quarter note, you should be checking in with everybody else. And you go, I got there just a fraction ahead of everybody else. Time to make a little micro adjustment,
If I look at recordings, within 2 bars, everybody is constantly adjusting.
Right. And that's a reflection of the fact that we are human beings. Mm-hmm. And that, we're not perfect. We could program machines to play, and there would never be a need for micro adjustment, but it would sound like a machine.
And then there's these rhythmic figures that are so dangerous. Some rhythm makes you rush and some rhythm makes you want to slow down, right?
my joke is that I can never seem to find a metronome that's able to follow me. None of them are built that way. So yeah, you raise a really excellent point. When you practice to a metronome, obviously, if you're playing something that's difficult, you're going to realize that the click is getting away from you, and they go, "Oh, that's hard, so I need to slow it down." But the flip side of that is something that we never really realize, is that if something is really easy for you to play, there's a good chance that you're going to skip ahead.
Yes.
Because it feels so easy. It's like, oh yeah, but no, you need to stay with that pulse.
A lot of horn players are always incredibly behind.
I played in a big band in Chicago, all, top call Chicago players. And you forget that you start playing and it's like, what's going on? So yeah, there's an interesting dynamic between what the job of a rhythm section player is and what a horn player is. And we need to allow the horns to sit back if they want, but don't let them push us around. It's like, yeah, you could do that, but here's where the truth is. And don't forget that, we're allowing you to sit back. Well, you'll find in historical styles, some like 20s and 30s, no horn player ever sat back.
No, they didn't.
That's like a post bebop thing, I guess. I don't know. But
it also seems to me more Chicago style attitude. In New York, everybody is a more towards the metronome than.
There's a certain mentality in New York, even not having to do with music. It's like I have no time. I need to be here now, so I can't hang around and make small talk with you. Doesn't mean I'm not a nice person. So yeah, I think maybe there's more of an urgency. in New York, and we're a little bit more laid back here in the Midwest, you might be onto something. But I think universally, most big bands, the horn players have a different idea of where things are. Well, I got to play with this amazing baritone sax player, Pepper Adams, when I was about 26 years old. It was such an incredible honor. And he loved to sit way, way back. And the rhythm section was inexperienced enough that we were, this man's a god, so, that's where the beat is. And he kind of yelled at us and said, don't drag, no matter where I am, don't drag. So that was a good lesson.
You know who did this all by himself? Errol Gardner. Errol Gardner had 2 timings.
He did, didn't he?
And I don't think anybody can imitate that. He had
And he never dropped a beat, though.
No. But the right hand was always a half a mile behind the left. I mean, I don't know how you do that. I tried.
That's
left hand always adjusts, when I drag the right hand. But it's almost like his 16th or 32nd note after, I mean.
So yeah, that tension creates such a great feel to it, but it's a slippery slope. I've run into some interesting conversations with vocalists who like to, the word is back phrase, and that's something I think that started with Sinatra, maybe, where, you wait, you're not putting the melody forth like it appears on the sheet music. And that is something that can really go wrong. And, I hate to be patronizing, but I have to explain that, if you back phrase so severely, I might be playing a chord that's supposed to be, if you're still singing the melody that's back there, it might not go with, and, sometimes they understand it and sometimes they don't, but,
that is a problem when you don't play in time, right? Mm-hmm. Like when you play a ballad and they want to have that freedom of extending a note, and then you don't know anymore.
Are you rubato?
Are they waiting for you?
Yeah. It's like, all right, I gave you enough time. It's time to move on.
Yeah.
If you do enough gigs with the same person,
and
then But when you're playing with somebody for the first time, there's a lot of guessing that goes on, and goes, I'm sorry, I guessed wrong, but it seemed like you were taking forever to get to the next quarter note.
So do you have a practice routine? I mean, maybe not anymore, because you're on such a level that you play a lot and you sometimes probably just need a break, right? But if you had time to practice, do you fall back on something specifically for your technique or for your voicings, or?
I could lie to you, Thomas, but yeah, I perform a lot, so that I don't do a ton of practicing, but I still like to. If I'm hired to do a show, then I obviously have to practice to learn specific music. But just in general, I still like to learn new tunes,
mm-hmm.
and I like to revisit. This is, the more songs that the harder it is to keep them all ready. It's like, I claim to know that song, but when's the last time I really played it? It may have been years. So it's like, let me sit down. And I think for a piano player, playing the melody to a song clearly is a very deceptive challenge. It's hard to do, to play the melody accurately, or if you're going to paraphrase, to still be respectful to the composer. So
I agree.
Yeah, just working through the repertoire. But then sometimes I'll just turn my brain off and let my fingers flop and do something that I think is cool, and then I'll assess it and I'll go, oh, well, that's something that I could see being part of my vocabulary. Let me turn it into kind of a jazz etude and play it in all 12 keys. And of course, always listening to the sound, make sure I'm articulating and not pounding, and play it to a metronome and keep inching the metronome up so that it's never quite comfortable, So it becomes both part of your vocabulary, but also strictly a technical exercise. So it's kind of versatile in that way.
You always want to create music, unless you think about something in slow motion, that's different. But when you say, I play a song, right? You play it.
Right. Well, yeah, I think of there's practice mode and there's performance mode. And obviously you never want to be in practice mode when you're in front of people. But you can be in performance mode when you're in the practice room too. It's like, when's the last time I played Polka Dots and Moonbeams? I'm going to sit down and play it in 4 different keys. And that's performance mode.
You just throw something so important in. You say, I play it in 4 different keys.
Yeah.
As the saying goes, you don't know a song until you can play it in all keys.
In terms of, I never really warm up when I show up to a gig. Here's a secret. I try not to be overly ambitious during the first tune. I'm just sort of, I'll play something that sounds like good music, but I know I'm not fully warmed up yet, but it'll trust me, it's going to still sound good. That's the benefit of what we do, which is we get to choose what notes we play.
There are these moments when the band sounds really great. You completely forget about everything. You're like super focused, but at the same time, not at all.
I've experienced that. Yeah.
You probably experience this a lot, right?
Well, it's funny. It's kind of all over the map. Yeah. If everybody is doing what they're supposed to do, and we could talk for hours about what that is, but if everybody is doing what they're supposed to do, then it makes my job much easier, meaning I don't have to work so hard to sort of take care of business. I can immediately go into more artistic statements, if you will. There are nights where no matter who's playing, I feel like the music's just like pouring out of my fingers, and everything is like, wow, this is going well. This is pretty easy. And then there are other nights where everybody could be sounding great, and for whatever reason, it's like, it's a struggle. And sometimes it gets easier as the night goes along, but sometimes it's like, man, that was hard work all night, and for no good reason, because everybody else was playing their butt off,
Huh, yeah. I think everybody has that. And
a very elusive thing.
We're generally less nervous probably as jazz musicians. We're not really thrown in these situations where you have to play everything note by note for an hour. But there are moments where we're a little nervous, right? Let's just be honest about it.
Absolutely. You should be a little nervous in that you care about what you're producing. But I don't want to know if somebody like famous is sitting in the audience. To me, that's going to be a distraction. It's like if some great piano player or some great anybody, or actually somebody who I care about, it could be my aunt or something, who's not even a musician. To me, that's a distraction. So yes, I need to be connected to the audience, but for me, it's much easier if the audience is just a bunch of people who I have no idea who they are, right?
Well, that's one thing, but when the red light goes on, that's a different situation. Because there's a microphone that doesn't lie.
Yeah. Being a recording it takes a really long time I've never felt fully comfortable, but you have to just you got to give yourself a pep talk and say, okay, people have been doing this for a long time, so I can too, so.
Yes, but again, back to our session, you were so rock solid on there. There was not a split second in my mind I had to worry about you playing the stuff the way I wanted it to.
When you are in a session like that, on your end, your job was to write interesting arrangements but with the knowledge that if you hire the right people, it's going to be possible to execute, even though there's complicated stuff. I guess my point is, don't write something that isn't going to be, that you don't have a good chance of having it being executed properly. If you had hired us all for 4 rehearsals, you could have written some really crazy stuff, and then it would have gone great in the rehearsal. So I think Duke Ellington always wrote for specific personnel, and he would write stuff that he knew that they could hit out of the park. So
I knew your sound, back to this, right? And I knew what you're capable of. And what I wrote was basically a roadmap in a way. And, it was absolutely clear to me. I just let you go. I never would insist on you playing anything that's on that page. Let yourself guide from what you hear, what the chords tell you, and, take the ideas that are there. And that's exactly what you did.
Well, thank you. Well, that's what makes a successful arranger. And you did a great job with these arrangements, specifically for the rhythm section players. It's like, here's kind of what I have in mind, but I called you because you have a certain personality when you play. So I want you to quickly assess what I put on the page, and then you know what to do, right?
And that's exactly but just because you're so experienced, that worked out, and I knew to hire you was the right decision. Glad
you figure that stuff out after a while. It's like, I've been handed parts, and I look at it and I go, oh, not in your case, but sometimes it's like, this person isn't really a piano player, right? Because what I'm looking at is not very ergonomically. So I'm going to go, you know what? This is kind of the same shape, and I know what my hands like to play and what they don't like to play, and hopefully it works out okay.
Oh,
unfortunately, if I'm doing like a Broadway show, you can't get away with that. You gotta play exactly what's on the page.
Now, can we linger on that for a second? The good old question. Jamie Aebersold once told me, you got to be able to play the same stuff in all keys. And all my life, I think about that. Really, did Oscar Peterson really play the same thing in E that he played in E flat? Really? And I think he didn't. Because there's just certain things that are so difficult to execute, that you don't take a Chopin etude and play it in a different key, right? Because he wrote it in that key.
Yeah. I think I would word it differently, in that as a craftsman, you should attempt to play things that you like in all 12 keys, and in the so-called difficult keys, not even a specific gesture, although that's a good thing to play in all 12 keys too. But if you really want to know it, learn a tune, play it in all 12 keys. And speaking for myself, if I play in these keys that everybody says are hard, like G flat and B and E, I guess, I'll discover things that are really lovely surprises that I never played in F or B flat before. It's like, wow, because of the way the keyboard is configured, certain things just occur in other keys more naturally than they do in other keys.
It's what I mean. Yeah.
But in terms of just playing a lick in all 12 keys, yeah, it's good for your chops to play it that way. But you're going to say, you know what? I've done this 100 times now, and it's still a pain in the butt in this key and that key. So I'm guessing I'm never going to play it in that key in performance mode. But I'm glad I practiced it. It made me a better man,
I love it. I love it, what you just said. I love this. Yeah, try it. Do it. Make yourself work, but don't obsess with it. Don't make it your life's work to play that one lick in that stupid key, you know?
You'll make yourself very unhappy. And you need to, at some point you go, I don't think this is in the cards for me. So
yeah,
I gave it my best shot, though.
And you said it, you know, discover licks that work in that key better than in the other key, you know? And I guess we all do that. I'm sure when I hear you play a stride piano in G, it will sound a lot different than in E flat, you know? And
Absolutely.
there's no doubt about it.
Even the slip slidey grace note of sliding off a black key going to a white key.
Sometimes not possible.
You can't really slip slide up to a black key from a white key. So
very difficult.
Yeah, so that every key has its own, you know, there are some people that go, oh yeah, D has a much brighter sound, and my brain doesn't really quite work that way. But in terms of like grace notes, it absolutely does work that way.
I was really blown away by that piano jazz that you did, Marilyn McPartland, right?
Oh yeah.
And you played amazing.
That was such an honor to be.
I think she wasn't on the height of her game anymore, but you were. And
she was she was in the coda at that point, but it was still, she was a good hang, and she was about 80 years old at that point.
Was this all like first take what you guys did, or did you? It's unbelievable. You just
we talked about beforehand.
Okay.
What songs we were going to do, and she makes it sound spontaneous, like, oh, you know what I'd really love to hear.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think we did second takes of anything.
You did this amazing Mingus song that I just love. This arrangement you did. You know what I'm talking about?
Orange was the color.
Yes. And I went back and listened to Mingus, and boy, how did you come up with this beautiful piano solo arrangement? Mingus takes it very freely. I mean, he's a bass player anyway, but he also had a piano version, I think he played.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Play piano. That's a crazy record.
But that piano version also sounded very different from what you played, and your version is outstanding. So how do you go about something like that? Can you just quickly sum up that process that you went through? So you listened to the song, you liked it, then what?
I start with the melody, because getting the melody across clearly there's nothing more important than that.
Did you have sheet music?
I've never seen it in any fake book, so it's not that complicated. You listen to the melody. You listen to what the bass player is doing, the chords just sort of figure themselves out, you know. So,
spoken like a real master.
well, you get better at it the more you do it. You know, before there were a million fake books, and before there was an internet, this was part of my practice routine. It's like, I'm not going to transcribe a whole solo, but I really like this song. So I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to write out a lead sheet on this song. So that means I have to get the melody accurately. I have to get the chords accurate. And then it becomes just a matter of knowing myself, knowing what feels good in my hands, what I believe that I can execute with a certain degree of confidence, and then just trying to build a format around those ideas.
But you are a harmony man, I would say, right?
Oh, I'm obsessed with harmony. Yes, very much.
You said this also in the interview, I think. It's clear to me when I listen to your CDs.
That's why
Mack the Knife, you know, what you did with that is just outrageous.
That's why I go crazy for Art Tatum. Just not only is his technique, but just how he how his harmonies just go all over the place and you can barely keep up, but it's so incredible.
I mean, the Mack the Knife arrangement that you did, man, it's...
Oh, thanks.
So the whole reharmonization thing, how do you think you approach this? Is this a more theoretical thing? You think about it, or you get in there and just try things out, or?
Well, there's a couple of things. If I want to reharmonize something, but still kind of stay true to the original form, I think of a song as like, I know I need to get from this point to this point, and then from that point to the next one. And I know the sheet music says that I should do it this way, but I look at it as kind of like doing a crossword puzzle or something. There's a lot of different ways that I could get from X to Y and from Y to Z. Now, in terms like the Mack the Knife thing, that's a lot less. There was very little functionality. It's like what sounds cool? Oh, and what sounds cool after that? And that,
but not intellectually. You tried things out, and
it's just a sound. Yeah, there's no logic. It's just based on what sounds good or not good to you, and that's based on for any melody note. If your ears are sophisticated enough, there's 15 or 20 different chords that you could put underneath that melody note. And it may have nothing whatsoever to do theoretically with the original. Like I said, it's just like, that sounds cool. You know, that's what I did with Mack the Knife, because it had become kind of a cliche song between Bobby Darin and Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald, all having these huge popular hits with it, but I wanted to do something different. So I put it in a bizarre, I think I played it in 11/4 or something, 11/8. And I'm not, I'm really bad at weird time signatures. So
why did you?
It started with the idea of what would happen if ... And this question was, what if I just played the melody of Mack the Knife in 4/4? Boo doo 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 doo. But underneath it, I played something that was not in 4/4. So you had these two different time signatures going at the same time. So I came up with this goo goo doo 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 doo, or whatever it was. It was like, I think it was in either 11 or 13.
It's an ostinato figure.
Yeah. I worked out the math on it. It's like, well, if I play that twice, now I'm at a different melody note. Now it's time to go to a different chord. And so I laid down the ostinato track by itself. And then later, on top of that, I just played the melody in 4/4. And it came out kind of cool, I thought.
That is amazing. I think you have so many more talents, you know. You could have been a writer, you could have a philosopher, maybe, you know.
And
a mathematician, just talking about the rhythmic stuff.
Thank you for all those kind words. Yeah, the blog thing was really an accident. I played a CD. I recorded a CD that somebody else paid for. And the producer said, you know, if we want to sell more CDs, you need to keep your content updated from time to time. And the best way to do that is to write a blog so that you're just writing stuff from time to time. And I thought to myself, oh, really? And but then I got into it, and I enjoy writing stuff. So
it's great, actually. Yeah, and just the way you write, it's funny. It's great, and obviously we have very aligned social ideas about society and things like that. So I liked it.
I thank you. Yeah, I try to express my opinions on, serious topics and some not so serious topics. It's just whatever.
Well, you go into, for example, relationships. We have to be masters of relationships in a way as musicians, right? Unless you are just like the top dog, then you can be a nasty guy and still have enough gigs.
So when you're 5 or 6 years old in school, your teacher writes a report at the end of the year, and it's very much similar to what you're just talking about. It's like, Jeremy plays well with others or does not play well with others. And you get on the bandstand and it's like, yeah, you're good at what you do, but this is not just about you. This is about us. So you do not play well with others. And I make mental notes of people that I enjoy making music with and people that I don't necessarily. And then I try to keep those at a minimum.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Even though they're very good. The talking part is very important to me because on every gig, there are breaks and you're socializing with people. We call it the hang,
Now the breaks look like this.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
You don't talk to anybody anymore. It's terrible times when it comes to that. I always enjoyed the social aspect and try to talk about other things during the break. You don't want to talk about a C7 chord. You want to.
No. And I think for obvious reasons, but I think it also brings depth to the music if you feel like you are having a solid communication with somebody, even if it's not about music, then you trust that person. And
it's beautiful. If you just like the guy you work with, right? You feel more like a family, and you play something that just didn't fit, then.
Yeah, it's
what?
Stuff happens. Yeah, it's trust and love and forgiveness.
How beneficial is it, in your opinion, that jazz musicians memorize the music they perform?
I tell my students to try to make it a priority. It's funny because I tell them, get away from the page so that you can prove that you really know the song and you can dive deeper into where the truth really is. But on the other hand, you better be able to be a good reader.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like two really, don't read, but be a good reader. I'm giving
Love it.
One really important reason is that so much information on the bandstand is exchanged visually. And if you're just looking at that piece of paper, or if you're playing with your eyes closed, you're going to miss a lot.
Chick Corea makes this a big point. He sometimes stops and says, hey.
Right. He's always looking at someone.
Actually, it relaxes you too. It takes you away from your little island there, with your 88 keys. And it does become easier, actually, right? Isn't it like that a little bit?
It becomes a group. It becomes a group enterprise. Yeah, I spend a lot of time staring at my fingers, but then I have to say to myself, no, you'll be fine. You'll be fine if you look up and look around. Maybe the band leader is trying to signal you for something.
it's coffee break.
Right, or whatever. You're playing too loud or something, or just getting a general vibe, or maybe some really beautiful person just walked into the club and you
don't want to miss that. Yeah.
How do you memorize music?
I'll open up a fake book or look at it, play it a bunch of times, then close the book and see how much of it I have memorized. And it's like, I'm at about 83%. What part do I keep messing up? Then I'll go look at it. And then, all right, I got it. Let me see if I can play it. Just the melody and the chords and the right rhythm. Play it a bunch of times in a row to try and lock it in. All right, now let's see if I can play it in a different key. It's not talent or genius. I think Yehudi Menuhin said it's about how much repetition you can endure is what makes you a better musician. So, yeah, play that song over and over until everybody else who can hear you is begging for mercy, asking you to stop doing that.
What sets apart the skill set of a jazz pianist from that of classical pianists?
I think what we do is a combination of trying to execute something specific, but also have the ability to make our own statement.
Yes. Chick Corea is the perfect example, isn't he?
I know he got into Juilliard. He said he was practicing 8 hours a day or whatever. And
He dropped out quickly, though.
did he?
Yeah, he didn't like the whole groove.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just... Well, obviously, we all didn't like it. I mean, I could not imagine living as a concert pianist. I mean, what a stressful life that would be for me.
And lonely, yeah.
And that too. I mean, you sit on a stage for 2 hours in the average 30,000 memorized notes,
And much of the audience
knows every note.
knows every note.
Every note.
Right. In jazz, if I mess something up, I'll play some variation of the mess up again, and then it becomes a motif. It's like, yeah, I meant to do that. I know you thought that was a mistake, didn't you? So.
Or you do it like Miles Davis, who said, when you hold on to a note long enough, it's going to be right eventually.
That's a good point. Good point.
Maybe that's why he played so many long notes.
Let the band find him.